Well, welcome to the Aging Boomers. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. Of course, on our show, we discuss so many of the issues facing boomers, their parents, and, of course, an aging population, which I'm right there and part of. So I want to remind everybody that today's show is sponsored by Senior Care Authority, a senior placement and elder care consulting organization that has a national network of professionally trained and experienced local advisors to assist families. They will work with you in determining the right path for you or your loved one and discuss various long-term care options, whether it is in-home care, assisted living, memory care, or nursing. Or, if you just need an advocate, get advice from a Senior Care Authority advisor for your loved one. For a free 30-minute consultation with an advisor in your area, contact Senior Care Authority at 888-809-1231, or you could go directly to the website at www.seniorcareauthority.com. So I want to first of all, thank everybody for joining us, and of course, I always want to thank you for all your support. Our listeners are growing each and every day, and it's because of you sharing information with friends and family, and so we really appreciate that very much. And so, without further ado, I want to introduce our guest today, which I'm very excited about, and very important subject matter. So we have with us Sara Zeff. And Sara, I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name. Is it Geber? Geber?
It's Geber, just
Geber.
Like Weber, only with a G.
Got it. So we have Sara Zeff Geber. She has a Ph.D. in counseling and human behavior and is the founder of LifeEncore. She's also a certified retirement coach and a recognized expert in motivating baby boomers to plan for the next phase of life. Dr. Geber's personal crusade is raising awareness about the unique challenges of solo aging. She regularly speaks about this issue at conferences and meetings of financial planners, gerontology professionals, housing developers, lawmakers, and others who play a role in the aging of America. So, Sara, thank you so much for joining us on the Aging Boomers. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Frank. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so, I don't want to assume that people understand the term solo aging. So maybe let's clarify for everybody when we talk about solo aging, explain that a little bit for all of us.
Sure. I define a solo ager as anyone who doesn't have children. And in that, I include people who are married, people who are single, people who are divorced. If you never had any children, male, no matter whether you're male or female, I consider you a solo ager.
Okay.
Some people define it differently. I have had people argue that it should be reserved just for single people, but I don't believe so, and I think I'll make it clear why I don't believe so as we go along.
Okay, so this is an area that obviously is growing. I mean, as you know, I'm in the industry, and we work with families, and I can't tell you how more often than even some years back, that we come across families or working with people who don't have children. Okay, so how did it kind of catch your attention? Are you a solo ager yourself? Did you have people that you knew? How you seem to be emphasizing this particular area. So how did that come about?
Well, you're exactly right. I am a solo ager myself, and I find myself surrounded by other people who are solo agers. And I think that's probably fairly typical for a woman who has made a career, a serious career throughout her life and never had children. She probably, like I, know lots of other women who have done the same thing. it caught my attention, though, about, 8 or 10 years ago, when I had a very good friend who was spending a tremendous amount of time taking care of her father-in-law. And her father-in-law was all the way on the East Coast, and she spent a tremendous amount of time flying back and forth and staying for months at a time, organizing his care, organizing his household, ultimately moving him into an assisted living facility, and it consumed her life for about 3 years. Her husband was really the breadwinner for both of them, so she, fortunately for the father-in-law, had the opportunity and the time to do this. But I found myself at one point just absolutely floored when the question hit me, who will do that for us? And the answer clearly was no one. There's nobody to pick up the slack. There's no safety net of children for solo agers. We're going to have to figure it out ourselves ahead of time, or we're leaving a great deal to chance.
Yeah, that is for sure. So, and maybe explain when you are talking about those that don't have children but are married, but you still kind of categorize each of them as solo agers. Why do you do that?
I do, and to me, it just seems to be fairly logical that even if you are married, unless you get hit by the same bus on the same day, one of you is going to predecease the other. It's just a fact of life. And then the other one will truly be solo and aging. Mm-hmm. So you don't know which one of you it's going to be. So it's important to both plan as well as you possibly can, plan robustly ahead of time. My husband and I have made it our business to do that. And we certainly don't know who's going to predecease the other, but we both have our plans in place for whichever one of us is left behind.
So give us, you don't have to tell us what your plans are, but give us some examples of what our solo agers should be thinking about.
Sure. Well, planning, in my opinion, for solo agers, and for anyone really, but certainly for solo agers, should be multifaceted. A big part of the planning is building up your support system, your relationships. Another big part of the planning is financial. And then housing is the kind of the third leg of the stool for solo agers. You need to know that you have all three of those pieces established and understand what they're going to do for you as the years go on. So sometime before you hit the age of 60, 65, for certain 70, all solo agers should be thinking about how they're going to finance the last part of their life, whether that's 5 years or 30 years. What are they going to do? How long do they have to make a living? Do they need to continue to bring in income beyond age 65, beyond age 70? There's lots of opportunity to do that. It's just important to understand where you are financially. So that's number one. And the another leg of the stool is the relationship piece. Many solo agers, both men and women, have spent a great deal of time building their careers. And once those careers wind down, many solo agers find that they don't really have a healthy relationship or social system, a support system around them, and they need to rebuild that with people outside their old work circles. Now, for some solo agers, that's not an issue. I have a number of friends and associates who have big supportive families. Others do not. So if your listeners, if any of the listeners have large families and you're close to your nieces and nephews and your siblings, and you have younger siblings, that's an excellent place to start. It always starts with family. I have a good friend who is a solo ager, and she comes from a family with 4 sisters. And she is the youngest of the sisters, but although she did not marry, all of the other sisters did marry and have lots of kids, and she's very close to her nieces and nephews. And when she does her planning, she includes all of them in her support system. They all know what she wants in her later years. They all know how she wants to be cared for, how she wants to be treated. So that was kind of a no-brainer for her. It's not so easy for people who don't have close family. My husband and I are in that situation. Neither of us have close family nearby or close family at all. So we need to figure it out with friends and with people who don't live quite as close to us, and we'll need to figure it out with some professionals as well. And then finally, the third leg... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The third leg is housing, and people need to give some real thought to where they want to live. The popular notion these days is that people want to age in place. ARP and others have done lots of research on what people want, and the vast majority of people say they want to age in place. I'm not a huge fan of that, especially for solo agers, because it can be very, very isolating and alienating to watch your world grow smaller and smaller and smaller with you in your little home or apartment. I think I have a minority opinion on that, but it's important to look at the options for where you might live, where you can be surrounded by other people that can be your support system if you are a solo ager. So those are the kind of the three legs of that stool that I think bear real attention by all solo agers.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, and that's that term aging in place. And a lot depends on how you really define it. I think it has been defined in the past as I am going to age the rest of my life in my home. But in reality, it's that you can age hopefully, somewhere without being in a healthcare facility. That's my feeling, is that you're not going to be in a hospital, you're not going to be in a nursing home, but the thing is there, as you know, there are so many options out there that are not so-called, medical facilities where people don't want to live the rest of their life, and that to me is also aging in place. But I know it might be stretching the term a little bit from what people are used to.
Well, I think we have to educate people. I know from the talks that I've given around the country, and the people I talk to casually, there is a tremendous lack of knowledge that there is anything between your own house and the nursing home. Right. And as you and I know, and probably a lot of your listeners know at this point, there's tremendous variety of housing opportunities between nursing home and your own personal home. Your own personal home can be part of a community. I'm a huge fan of some of the new concepts like cohousing.
Right.
I'm a big fan of all kinds of retirement communities, and the exciting thing for everyone, not just solo agers, is that more and more innovative ideas in housing for older adults are coming up all the time.
Yep.
By independents, by the big corporate housing companies, by what I think of as sort of the housing giants for older adults. They're getting innovative. Everybody's getting innovative, and it's just wonderful to see. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the future of housing for older adults.
Yeah, that's the main business we're in, and there are those that companies out there that are testing so many different concepts. Instead of maybe a high rise or this one building, on their campus, they set up almost smaller homes, within their campus, almost like they're setting up this mini subdivision of elderly. And if someone needs care, there's caregivers, etc. So there are a lot there are a lot more options out there for people. I agree. One question I was going to ask you, and I think I know the answer, but I want to ask you anyway, and that is, when you're talking to clients of yours or giving advice, are they just in total shock when they hear what kind of costs could be? Should they need any type of assisted living or maybe even memory care assistance in the future, or are they aware of those types of costs?
Well, I don't get into the business of talking to them about costs. I know what the costs are because I've done a lot of research in this area, so I know what's out there and I know the range. But I encourage people very strongly to talk to their financial advisor. Starting more basic, I encourage them to find a financial advisor and talk to her or him about their future, about what they can afford. Financial advisors, those that I know anyway, the good ones, they all are very aware of what of what housing costs for older adults, and they can help people work it out. It is a shock to a lot of people, though, and people don't realize how much money they really need to will need to depend on in the last few years of their lives. I'm a big fan of long-term care insurance. A lot of people who have had it now for 10 years or so got some very good programs, and I encourage them to keep them up. Don't let them falter. People are making very good use of those in their later years. I know there are some communities around, some facilities that want people to have long-term care insurance. Of course, many people don't have that. It's expensive as well. But there are a lot of, I think there are a lot of ways to work with this, and I think that's where some of these innovative housing ideas are going to have to show up, because people are going to need housing, and a lot of them aren't going to be able to afford the kind of housing that exists today. Right.
And I think when you mentioned the term housing, I think people need to understand that, our listeners need to understand, is when we say housing, obviously it could just be that. It could be just you're paying rent somewhere. But the reality is that, once you hit, 70 years old, your chances are pretty good that you're going to need some additional care, some additional long-term care. And that could be anywhere from medication management, reminders on taking medication, to, help with what we call activities of daily living, just the day-to-day type things. And that's where the, additional costs over and above housing can occur. So
absolutely, and housing, I think I agree with you. Housing is sort of a cold term. I'd like to put that more as people need a home. People need a place to live where it's safe and secure, and they have their care needs, if and when they have them, met. And that can be in a lot of different kinds of settings. It can even be in a setting with roommates, where there is where there's an aide that comes in and provides some care to whoever needs it when they need it. Someone who is available and easily accessed. There's a network, a fairly new network out there now called Silver Nest, that puts people together with roommates, if you will, housemates, that can be a wonderful way to build a home with like-minded people that will save you from the kind of isolation that you may easily fall into if you're all on your own. Right.
We actually had, I'm trying to remember her name, but we had a representative from Silver Nest on our show quite a while. It's been a while, but it's a great concept. Yeah. It's a great concept.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is. There There was another organization a few years ago called the Golden Girl Network,
right.
started by a woman in Maryland.
Yeah.
That, unfortunately, doesn't exist any longer. I think that, well, I don't know. Someone told me that the woman who started it became ill herself and had to let it go. And I was so sorry to hear that, because she did such a good, she was doing such a good thing by promoting that concept. And
right.
She had a whole training program around how to find roommates and how to draw up a legal agreement, and it was just terrific.
Now, it's also important to know not every, assisted living that may have independent living and assisted living in their community, not everybody does this, but some of them will they will share people up. Obviously, they want to make sure it's going to be compatible. They're not matchmaker type organizations, but it's always good to inquire about that. I just know that. So it's in other words, it's great like Silver Nest and others, but if you're talking to let's say you needed help, a little bit of help from a care standpoint, and you were alone and you were willing to have a shared type of an apartment, some places will try to match up. Not all, but some.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
Yeah, so any other suggestions you have for people relative to living arrangements? I know you mentioned those Silver Nest, but any other anything else you recommend?
Well, I mentioned cohousing. It's a phenomenon that is growing. It started in Europe about 20 years ago, and there's now several developers who specialize in building co-housing properties for, they're always grassroots efforts. It's always someone that gets fired up about building a co-housing community and gets it started and recruits others. It's always a grassroots effort. But I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of what's known now as elder co-housing, which is a concept that speaks for itself. It's people over 55 who want to build a community that they can grow old together in. And I just think that's a terrific way to go about it. The one community that I'm very familiar with in California was built in during the recession, and people were finally able to move in, I think about 2013, 2014, the first people moved into it. And they actually built an additional unit, 2 units, on the property for the immediate use of people coming to visit, and anyone can reserve the units for visiting family. But ultimately, those units are earmarked for caregivers, because that community is going to be growing old together. The age range right now is early 60s to mid 80s, and they're going to be aging together, and they will need care at some point, many of them. So I think that was very forward thinking on their part, and I'm happy to see Chuck Durrett out of Sacramento, somewhere near Sacramento.
Right.
Chuck Durrett and Catherine McCammon, who you may have talked to already, are huge advocates of elder co-housing, and Chuck and Catherine are some of the foremost architects in the country of the co-housing communities. So they're great resources.
Yeah. So how would people, if they wanted to kind of either get in touch with you or kind of track what you're doing? I know you have plans to be coming out with a book real soon on this subject matter. So do you have a website or any contact information that people could kind of stay in touch with you?
I sure do. Yes, I have been writing a book on solo aging for the past couple of years, and I was just on the threshold of self-publishing when a publisher, a traditional publisher, got very interested, so it's going to be a little delayed. But I'm hoping it'll still be out by the end of this year. But meanwhile, my website is LifeEncore.com, and I can be reached through the website or at Sarah@LifeEncore.com.
Okay, and that's LifeEncore.com. Okay,
that's correct.
All right, great. So
yeah.
I'm gonna we only have a couple minutes left here, so I'm gonna hit you with this one question. Okay, I'm gonna put you on the spot. So
sure.
For those solo agers out there, those who are listening, or those who have clients that are solo agers, what are the steps that you think need to be taken immediately, or just within a reasonable period of time? What are your suggestions?
Great question, and I go back to my little proverbial three-legged stool. Understand your finances. Get yourself to a financial advisor. Get yourself to someone who can sit down with you and take a look at what you have, what you're earning now, what you potentially can earn if you need to in the future, and where you are financially. Then do an assessment of your support system. Who is in your life? What family is in your life? What friends are in your life, especially younger friends that you can rely upon? And I want to add one thing to that I haven't mentioned. I'm also a very big fan of solo agers hiring fiduciaries.
Right.
People who can...
Yep.
People who understand their wishes, people who you can build a relationship with. They charge by the hour, and it's all backloaded when they don't do too much except charge you for a meeting like every year or so, until you need the help. And then as long as you have an estate of some sort, you have some money in reserve, their time on the back end, when decisions need to be made in your behalf, that's when they charge for their time. So my husband and I have been in touch with fiduciaries, and we're going to be using fiduciaries in our advanced healthcare directives and our trust. Again, because we don't have close family, and I think that's very important for people who are in that same boat.
That's a great point. Great point. So, Sara, thank you so much for joining us on the Aging Boomers. Sara Zeff Geber. Check it out at www.lifeencore.com. And again, I want to thank everybody for joining in, and of course, so many of you have tuned into iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, or gone to our website at theagingboomers.com. So thank you for that. Sara, thank you. And just wanted to let everybody know to be safe out there, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks so much.